Hello, everybody. Welcome to those people who are on Zoom. I'm going to do the best I can. I have no idea how this is going to work because I'm not quite sure what my vision is going to do at this, having just had a cataract operation. Okay, so we'll start. I thought what we did last week was very well done, but I think certainly the beginners need more practice at it. And I think even some of the more established painters were actually struggling a little bit. So I thought we'd do the same exercise again today, but take a little bit more time over it. So what I'm going to do is demonstrate doing it to this warrior all the way through to the bitter end, which I hope will only take me about half an hour, and then send you back to your places or switch off the Zoom so that you can actually go and try it yourselves. Okay, so here he is. If I sit down, yeah. I won't have to bend over. Right. First thing to note is the shadows, because if you remember what we were doing, we're putting in shadows. And I'm going to start at the bottom. So come where you can see the shadows. Don't hide. There's a shadow on the deck here, on the floor here, as well as the shadow on his foot. And if you look, there's a little sort of indentation where the shadow on the floor goes back over before you get the shadow on the bottom of the foot there. This side of the foot is in shadow with a bit of a shadow on the floor, and it extends across here, because that's a shadow on the floor, to his knee here. The whole of this leg, apart from little pieces, is in shadow until you get to his knee, which catches the light. The light is from overhead, so his knee, his skirt here, and this knee, top of this hand, top of this hand, his face, his top knot, and this shoulder certainly are catching the light. So the light is up here, coming down towards him. Remember, when you're putting in the shadow, you're using a fairly light color just to say, there is a shadow here. You're not saying, this is a dark shadow, this is a light shadow. You're just saying, this is in shadow, and the bit I've left out is in the light. Now, something of an apology. There were 3 people in the room who did the outside of the figure first, and I suggested they start again and do the inside of the figure. That was because normally you don't paint all the way around a figure. Normally, you only put the bits of shadow in where you need them to define things. So I'll explain that as I go along. But people who did the outside first weren't wrong. It was just I was thinking of something entirely different and told them to do it again, which was a bit naughty. So because it was naughty, I apologize. Right, now let's see what I can do about the painting. I have already wet my blue because I'm going to be using the blue again. If you remember, I told you the first thing to do, whether you're using paint from tubes, because you can reuse it, or paint from pans, if you just re-wet it before you start, it allows the paint, gives the paint a chance to dissolve a little bit and accept what you're trying to do a bit. Normally I clean the palette, but I was going to use blue anyway, so it's not a problem. So I'm going to and remember, I'm trying to get you not to have bad habits. So if you see me doing something that I've told you not to do, just remember I've got bad habits, and I'm trying to make sure you don't have bad habits. So you can tell me, hey, that's fine. But there we are. So if you remember, you mix the paint on the palette, and because I'm going to be doing quite a lot, I want quite a lot of paint. So I'm making quite a pile of it here. Doesn't desperately matter if I have to mix it again. It's just right. I think that's fine. We'll start. Wish me luck. I'm off. We're going to start with his knee. So his knee is there. And you see, I'm using the whole of the brush. I'm not drawing the edge. I'm using the whole of the brush. If I need to do a second stroke, that's fine. It comes down here. There's a break off there. Comes down this side along the bottom now. I'm using the point. Sorry. That bit more. Right. Oh, I see. Okay. Right. And you have the shadow across here. It's the shadow on the ground, and then you have the shadow under his foot there. I think that's just about right, isn't it? Right. So I'm going to move on from there. So if I move on from there, I have, I think that's a bit squarer, so I'll just make it a bit squarer. Yeah. There's a thin shadow down here, which is the edge of his dress. That's that shadow down there. Thickens a bit towards the bottom where it meets his knee. And it goes over there, like that. This is quite fun to do because you've got to try and be accurate. It doesn't matter if you're not. You know, life is like that. Now, that bit is in light, but his knee here is in shadow. He's kneeling on the ground. So we can, I think, yes, I can go up there. That's in shadow. So sort of that shape, isn't it? And then there's another shadow on the ground. That shadow, oh, this is interesting, isn't it? There are empty two shadows here. Right. So it goes up from there. I probably won't get that angle right, but you know, right. So you can use the point when you have to. Here is his back foot, so it's there. That's all in shadow. That's about, okay. And that comes round like that. And there's a shadow. This is all in shadow too, isn't it, here? Quite a strong shadow there. Okay, and then there's a little bit of light there, a little bit of light there. And then you've got the side of his leg in shadow. You notice I haven't had to go back for much paint because this holds so much. Right, now then, if we go back from here, there's a thin line there, which goes down there. I'll worry about them later. Back here, we've got his arm. Now his arm is back on his knee, which is in the light there. That point is just about over the heel, so it's about there. And, oh, there's a funny black thing sticking out there. That's actually the wheels from a wheelchair, or a pushchair. So just ignore those little black bits there. Right, so we've got the side of his arm there. That's in shadow. Catches the light at the top then. Where are we? That's the elbow. A couple of streaks here. And quite a deep shadow there. That is definitely in shadow there. Feeling my way across that. And the shadow comes to about there. So you can see I'm feeling my way. I'm not sure. I'm trying to go from what I can see. How long is that arm there? So that point is about middle of the knee. So I'm nearly there, aren't I? That's that arm there. Then you have to allow for that to go down. His hand comes here. And all of his chest. When I've got it this far, I might as well finish his chest. All of his chest here. Didn't make enough paint. Tell me a story. That's life. Where are we? We want to go. It's his hand. So it's over here. Is that right? Yes, it's over his leg. There's his foot. That line is there. So I'll have to make some more paint, which I was hoping not to have to do. Because what happens is you get a different color, different tone. Let's just hope that it's right. Right now, the whole of this shoulder. There we are. He's got a sort of scarf around his neck. Which is curved, and that's this shoulder there. Comes down here. This is in shadow. This is in shadow. Right, I'm lost. That's his hand. That's his hand. There. So this comes down here to his hand. This is in shadow here. This hand comes out a bit. Then there are fingers. Probably have to do something about them. Then we've got, missed his thumb, no mind, eh? This is his arm. And down here. I think we could do with a bit more of a roundness there. Right, now then, that's his scarf around his neck. Side of his face. Remember, form before detail. So we've got the side of his face, his cheek, a little twiddle on his mouth. I'll not get that right, so I'm not going to bother with it desperately. Side of his face, the side of his hat. Let's get his head right. There's an ear there somewhere. There we are. We've got, I think that's his top knot. And then there's a bit of shadow there. A little bit of shadow there. And there's all the shadows on his face. I'm going to come back to them. I'm a bit concerned about this one here, because this defines the rest of the. They come down here. That's the side of the. And that sweeps down. Crossage. Right, now there's not a lot of detail that I put in there. I don't like that ugly line, so I'm just going to go across that to make it, because I had to make more paint. Doesn't desperately matter at this stage. Now, is he there? Sort of. Right. Now, I really ought to work on the shadows on his face before I do anything else. I'm a bit nervous about it because I made a mucker of this before. However, we'll try. We've got the side of his face. There's his chin. Chin comes there. There's a slash or shadow for his mouth. There. On the side of that cheek. I bet I've got him wrong because I'm not very good at drawing. There's that cheek there. You see how the point does come into focus and use. Something wrong there, isn't there? What is wrong there? Ah, right. If that, I was going to make that his chin. But yes, that's where his chin. So that's his mouth. And I haven't got his mouth entirely right. Ah, yes, that comes down there to give me a proper chin. The shadow on the chin is more or less that shape. Shadow on the mouth is a bit more pointed. And then there's a little space there before we get the blob for his nose. And that comes down to there. And there's the side of the face, and there's an eye. There's an eye there, with an eyebrow over it. That eye comes up to the nose. That nose. Something wrong there. That shadow should go all like that. Doesn't look like a person to me. Right, okay. So there's a line here, which is the top. This box, it comes further across, doesn't it? Now, what I can do is just put a little bit more water in there and see if I can define the parts of the body that are in light by painting the background. So there's his leg here. You see it quite clearly here, but as it goes back there, because it's in the light, it's not going to show. So I've got to put the background in to suggest the light. I'm just going to whisk that away because it's not. It's just defining that. That is far too dark. Go away. I don't want the edge to be so definite. It just draws attention to it. Now the side of his arm is okay, but here also he's catching the light. Side of his arm is okay, so that's in shadow. But there, we catch the top of the over the shoulder. We take it up here. When we get to the side of the face, we've got the side of the face here, and the hair, and then the top knot around here. So if we take that just to indicate that side of his body. Now, there we are. I don't think I need to define, well, maybe here. Just the back of his fingers. And maybe a little bit here. Fine. Sorry. Well, yeah. just to define the side of the foot in light. I don't want that to be too noticeable, so I'm just going to get away here. Right, how are we doing? I think that's okay. Yeah, that'll do. Right, so he's reasonably all right there. He's sort of in the right place. Could have been drawn better. You know, that's life. Okay, so what you do next is you make a darker paint. How do you make it darker? More pigment, less water. So I'm twisting the brush in the paint, making a much darker paint. Now I'm going to take some water out of the brush so that the paint stays dark. Notice I didn't pull the brush on with a rag. I pressed the reservoir of the brush on a piece of cloth. Right, now we want to make some places darker. Definitely here. That's definitely darker there. And here, that's definitely darker there. This is definitely darker here. How are we doing for time rate? Rachel? Eek! It'll not get finished. Right, so we're going to be spending a lot of time on this. This is darker here. That thin line is darker. That edge is darker. This around here is darker. Can you still see? This down this side is very much darker, all the way down, down here, down here, down here. There. Got a bit here that's darker. There. A couple of lines there. Right. That line there is darker. There's a shadow, strong shadow in there. Comes down this arm. Perhaps it's going to take you longer than you think to do this. That there is very much darker. Under his chin. This little scarf thing that he's got around his neck. This is darker still. Decorative shadows of the armor, if you feel you're up to it. If you're not, let's just just make it flat for the time being while you get hold of the idea of what it is you're trying to do. Right, bite the bullet. Come on, do this bit. I hate doing his face. Right. That goes all the way around there. Got shadow there. There. That's bulged out too much, but you know, that's life, isn't it? There's his ear, so there's his eye. This eye. And this eye, that's the eyebrow. That eye is a funny shape. There we are. The nose has got a really dark shadow on it. That side of his face. And the bar that is his mouth. Yeah. Right. That goes up a bit higher. No, that's that dark shadow there, isn't it? There is a dark one there where he's sitting. On top of the foot. It's a bit accurate drawing there. Now, some of these are a bit strong, so I'm going to see if I can soften them off a bit. So that's a curve. That's a curve. So it should be softer than I've allowed for. No, it's dried out. Can't do it. Okay, not to worry. Okay. Well, that's as far as I've gone for the time being. And that took me 30 minutes. 30 minutes. So it's going to take you at least 30 minutes to get that far. So instead of doing 3 pictures today, we'll be doing 1. Right, hello, welcome back, all my Zooming companions. And that's the right one, yes. And everybody in the room. Now, I still haven't finished putting in the shadows. So what I'm proposing to do this time is to complete putting in the shadow work as far as I am able. I see I've got his head at the wrong angle. It's actually more upright than I've got it. But little things are sent to try us. Okay. So there are some quite strong decorative details that I'd like to get in at this stage. So I'm taking the water out of the brush by resting it on a piece of cloth so that I get more pigment and less water in the brush. I could actually use a different brush if I thought about it, but I tend not to. Right, now let's see what I can do to take things on. I think actually I didn't get the line of that shoulder right, and it's going to show, but I'll put it in right now, more like that, I think. However, I'm not too worried by that line because it is in fact quite a dark line there anyway. I think I'm going to have to use a smaller brush. What's that one? There we are. So I've wet the brush to start with. It's a much smaller brush. The one I used in the beginning was a 12. This is a 6. I'll see better with my glasses off. Right. So I'm twisting that in the paint now. Aiming to get a really dark mix if I can possibly manage it. And there's certain decorative details on his armor. There's a sort of dot and carry one line down here, which goes all the way down his arm. This is very, I can't get this blue to be as dark as I want it to here. I'll have to do something about that later. This is definitely darker here. We've got armor lines across, sort of line across here. And another one there. This shadow goes into it. It's a wriggly line, isn't it? And when we come here, I'm going to take it round. There's another one here. Take it round. This one comes down here. He's got lines on here. There's another one here on a level with the top of his arm. It's when you do this, you realize the mistakes you made in the original drawing. But, you know, life goes on, so you carry on as best you can. Here, you've got a shadow here. Which goes round here. Okay. This is still the same. It's just got no water in it. No paint there. Right. This is quite dark here. This comes around there. This comes down here. Right. We've got fingers on here. The shadows. Put that line in. There's another one there. I'm not going to get that line of his sock in there, so I'll just ignore that for the time being. There is a slight shadow there. That is too dark. I'll take it out a bit. Right. And then I've got some little lines in there. And these lines help give form to that knee. Start to curve the knee where we want it to. That goes down there. A really deep shadow there. I don't think I'm going to get it. I might get it. That's the shadow that his knee is throwing on the ground, so it's quite dark. Darker even than the underside of his knee. That shadow in there is even darker. Sort of wedge shaped up there. There's a little shadow there where he's sitting. That's called a contact shadow. Just a piece of information. Better. This is very much darker here. And here. Right. There's a shadow there. There's a shape around here. There's a shadow there. There's a shadow there, which is his hairline, I think. It comes down here. That area of his top knot is very much darker. There. I can't put his face right. That eye is too high. If I was really fussing, I could do something about it, but I'm not fussing too much about that. His cheek is a little bit darker on the side of the face there. To his chin. And that is also darker there. Right, now I can't rescue his thumb, I don't think. There is a thumb there. Sticking up, and it's not going to show because I've darkened it too much. This shadow here. And there are some little shadows across here, across his cuff. If I can bring them round, that helps to delineate his cuff again. Right, now, go back to the other one. Now, this is too soon. Okay, I'm doing this too soon because I want to show you what to do. So I'm rinsing the brush, taking clean water. I'm going for burnt sienna because that's the one we used last time. Okay. Now, I don't want it to be very dark, so I'm going to add a bit of water to that. Now, I can't put this on where the paint is wet. If I do that, I'll have disaster. I think that leg is dry. Yeah, that leg is dry, so I'll do that leg to show you what to do. Okay. So, if we take this and put it over there, and when we come down here, take it that way. Where I've gone with the blue paint, that's now got a really dark color, but it's still the browny color. And where I didn't put any paint, it's gone a paler browny color, so that the whole thing looks a little bit more alive. Let's see how much further I can go. I can go down here. Do you see, I'm just putting one wash over it. I'm not making any effort to brown, because it's got, the changes come from the blue that I got there. So I'm just going over the whole of what is him with the brown paint. We're doing all right, aren't we? Yeah, okay. I can't go over there, that's sodden wet, but I can come down here and join him up there. Take his arm down. So he's going to look a bit piebald because I don't want to go too near that patch of wet over there. I think his arm is dry. That is wet. Let's get his arm in. working all right. I'm sneaking around the sneaking around the wet paint. Right, get his head in. Right, this is where, when you put the colour on bits that are highlighted, you begin to get more of the shape of the character himself. There we are. Apart from the blue patch, that should be done, but isn't done. It isn't done because it's wet and I was hurrying. But you can see how the brown paint pulls the whole figure together. And bear in mind that watercolor dries lighter. So while it's drying, the paint fairies will get at it, make that brown a lot lighter. And then the contrast between the dark and the light will really show up. And by just putting one color over the whole thing, that one wash brings the whole of the figure together. And all the careful work you put into all the detail in the shadows has been justified, in effect. Whereas if you actually tried to paint him in brown and do that, it would be difficult. So although it's quite a battle, this is an easier way of doing it. What I'm trying to say. And I'll leave it there. I will finish that when it's dry. Otherwise,
is that the same center we used last
yes, last week we used burnt sienna. If you want to get it more like the color in the photograph, if you use burnt umber, you will achieve that more quiet color than I do. But I just used burnt sienna because I used that last week, and I thought, you know, let's stick to what we know. Okay.
Thank you.
So there we are. That's what you do. End of story.